Today we're going to be factoring quadratic trinomials in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is the leading coefficient, b is the middle term, and c is the constant. And the method we're going to use is called split the middle term. So in other words, this b is going to be split into two different values, and you'll see how that works in just a second. So what I'm going to do is give you an actual problem, such as 12x squared plus 8x plus, or I should say minus in this case, 15. Okay, I think I'll make the 15 red, just like I did before. And maybe I'll make this plus sign a little bit better right here. Okay, so we're going to do a system called the magic X. There's not really anything magic about it, but what you do is you make an X, and we're going to put A times C at the top. Okay, A multiplied by C. And on the bottom of the X, we're going to put B, whatever that number is. Okay, so I'll put that right here, fix that right there. All right, just move that over a little bit. So that's basically what's happening there. So A times C on the top and B on the bottom. And what's happening here is that you want to get two numbers that multiply, and that's called the product. So we'll put that at the top here. We want the product at the top. Okay, product is when you multiply two numbers, and at the bottom we want the sum. Okay, so basically for our problem now we have 12 times negative 15 here. Now 12 times negative 15 happens to be negative 180. Okay, so that's a negative 180 here. And again, how did I get that? That's 12 times negative 15. Remember, A times C. And on the bottom, we're going to put this 8. Okay, so we'll put the 8 right here. Now I have to think of two numbers when multiplied equal negative 180, and at the same time, those two numbers when added together equal 8. So when I think of 180, in general, I think of 18 times 10. So we'll go ahead and put that. So if we have 18 and a 10, that doesn't quite work for us because this needs to be a negative 180. That means one of these factors has to be negative. So we want a positive 8 here when we add these two together. So what that means, I have to make the 10 negative. In addition to that, we're going to go ahead and put an X here and here, because what we're doing is we're splitting the middle term. So we started with 12x squared plus 8x minus 15. We're going to rewrite it so that it now looks like this. 12x squared plus, okay, so instead of 8x, I'm going to put 18. I'm going to put 18x, and maybe I'll make that x white there. Okay, and then minus 10x. Now it's minus because it's a negative 10x. You can say plus negative, or you can say minus 10x. And we still have that minus 15 for the constant. So you can see what we've done is we've split the middle term. The middle term was 8, and we split it into two pieces. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that as, I'll rewrite it again, as 12x squared, just to give myself a little bit more room, plus 18x minus 10x, and then minus 15. All right, what we're going to do next is, ignore that, we're going to split this polynomial. It now has 4 terms, and we did that on purpose, into 2 parts. And sometimes we call this the Harry Potter method, because this symbol here looks like the Harry Potter symbol. And what we're going to do is I'm going to find what we call the greatest common factor of the first 2 terms, sometimes referred to as the GCF. Okay, that's the GCF. Okay, so I'm looking at 12x squared plus 18x, and the greatest common factor is going to be 6x. So I'll go ahead and write that out. It's going to be 6x. Okay, and then I'm going to have some parentheses here. So inside the parentheses, maybe I'll make that dark blue. I'm going to have, okay, 6 times 2 is 12, and x times x is x squared, so I'm going to have a 2x here. So I'll put a 2x here, okay, and then 6 times 3 is 18, so it's going to be plus 3. Okay, now technically what I'm going to do here is factor out the GCF of these 2 terms here, but before I do that, in order for this to work, is that if I have a 2x plus 3 here, I have to have another one over here. Has to be that way if it's going to work. So we have a 2x plus 3. Okay, and it turns out that 2 times negative 5 is negative 10, so that's what I'm going to put over there. I'll put a negative 5 here. Okay, so at this point, here's what's really happening. Let's say this entire quantity here, instead of 2x plus 3, let's pretend it was a y, and this 2x plus 3 was a y. If that was the case, then you would have something like this. You're going to have 6x. I'll go ahead and make that the different color here. Okay, you're going to have 6xy, because remember we replaced the 2x plus 3 with a y, and then minus 5y is what we would end up having. Okay, and the only reason I'm doing this is to show you what's really happening. So if we had to factor out whatever we could from 6xy minus 5y, we would factor out the y, because that's what's common in both of those. So we'd factor out the y, and then we would end up with 6x minus 5 in parentheses. Okay, we'd end up with 6x minus 5 in parentheses. Well, instead of a y, we have a 2x plus 3. So what's really happening is that we're factoring out a 2x plus 3. So I'll go ahead and put that over here. So instead of a y, we have a 2x plus 3 that we're factoring out. And what are we left with? 6x minus 5. And that would be the factorization of the original problem. If we go back to the original problem of 12x squared plus 8x minus 15. It factors out 2x plus 3 times 6x minus 5. Now, I want you to try this one on a separate piece of paper. Let's say we have 3x squared plus 10x minus 8. See if you can do that one on your own.